Welcome. I am Shannon Houston from K12 Lift, and I'm here with my colleague, founder of K12 Lift, Sam Foerster. And today we're going to talk about why K12 Lift exists, I think. Basically, why it's necessary in the education space. So we describe K12 Lift as an education data reporting company. And that seems very specific to me, like a very narrow slice of the education space. And I'm wondering, why do you think that's necessary? Why do we need a data reporting company specifically?
I think my answer has changed over the time we've been doing this work. I used to think that the reporting of academic data particularly could be better, could be more useful. And that was true. But I think what I've learned in the intervening years is that not only is the reporting that is commonly available not pretty, not well organized, not efficient, in many cases it's misleading. It's premised on some questions that are either the wrong questions or they're using the wrong metric to answer the right question. And I don't think I knew that was true or knew the extent to which it was true until we got into this business years ago and have over time been on site in so many different places, multiple states at this point, realizing how deep the misconceptions are and hearing people who are otherwise really well informed about the administration of public education generally not being well informed at all about what the evidence that they have in front of them is actually saying.
Can you give me an example?
Gosh. Well, I mean, probably the most profound example we have talked about in other conversations, and that is that there is this over-reliance on proficiency as a metric of success or progress, and that is not helpful in the moment at all. And by in the moment, I mean in a given school year, you need to have an understanding of how quickly students are learning. That is going to speak to ultimately how many of them are proficient at the end of the year. In the net, right? The ones that started below grade level that you get over and the ones that started above grade level that you didn't lose. It's about growth. It has to be about growth. And it typically isn't in the way that these things get reported through either third-party proprietary platforms or even by state education agencies.
Or sometimes it is about growth, but maybe in a confounding way.
I think confounding is the right word.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've participated in data reviews run by third-party organizations whose assessments are terrific. Like, they are terrific. The data is valuable, well-aligned to state outcomes, useful to teachers potentially, but not reported in a way that is non-confounding to me. I mean, as a person who does this for a living, I've sat through a couple of those, gotten up an hour later and realized I know less about how a district is doing than I did when I sat down. And that's a problem. I mean, if it confuses me, I'm thinking the other people in the room are either just as confused and too embarrassed to say it, or left with the wrong impression, like left believing that what they were led to believe was true is, when it isn't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why do I think it is important, even though it's a very narrow lane? I think, again, I used to think it could be better. And now I think it has to be better. Like, if we're going to help people improve instruction, which is ultimately what our company is about, they've got to have access to information that paints a clearer picture of what is and is not happening on the ground, in their classrooms, in their schools. They've got to have that.
So what are some of the ways you've tackled the problem?
I guess taking each barrier as it was identified in turn, like really being deliberate about asking the question, what's keeping people from coming to the right conclusion here? Sometimes it's that the reporting is designed to answer the wrong question. Classic example. what percentage of my students will be proficient at the end of the year if they took the test right now?
Who's asking that question?
That is the question the portal for the Florida Department of Education is designed to answer. And it answers that question accurately.
Right.
It does. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
I would just argue it's not particularly useful at PM1, meaning the first assessment at the beginning of the year or at the middle of the year. I don't need the answer to that question because my kids are going to learn through the course of the year.
Right.
I want to know where are they going to be if they learn a typical amount. That gives me a much better idea at the beginning and the middle where we are. And I think that's much more actionable.
And how do you report on whether they learn a typical amount? How is that different than what you can find in the portal?
So I don't want to single DOE out. That's not the point of what I'm about to say. The point is more about the problem with using scale scores and not percentile rankings. The problem with using scale scores and mapping those to an end-of-year achievement level is that it does not convey clearly what is expected in the way of growth for a given student and by extension, a classroom or a grade level. It doesn't answer that question. So you were left to wonder, okay, this student would have been at a level 2 at the beginning of the year and is now a level 3 at the middle of the year. That sounds great. Is it? I'm here to tell you, with a scale score, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you are looking at the percentile ranking, I have a much clearer idea. Super simple. Did that number go up or down? That student's learning more than a year's material at a time, more than a year's material in a year's time or less. I know that right away. I don't need the percentile ranking. I don't need it even mapped to an achievement level yet. I just need to know what is their rate of progress. That's why it's called progress monitoring, by the way, right? There's that extension. So anyway, that's an example of how I think the reporting could be clearer. And because it is not clear, sometimes it leads people to the wrong conclusions about what is true. So we've talked in other conversations, for example, about how if you take that scale score and map it to an end-of-year cut point, you might conclude that a kid in the 70th percentile needs a tier 2 intervention.
Right.
That's the last thing that kid needs. That kid needs above grade level instruction. If you're looking at the achievement level descriptors, start at a 4. Figure out how to get your instruction there at any given lesson. That will serve that student well. That's important stuff to know. Like if I'm a teacher, if I'm a coach, if I'm a principal, that changes how I talk about what's happening in my planning sessions. It changes my expectations for kids. It is a profoundly different outcome than the same data being reported in a different way. And I hope I'm making the connection that this is about so much more than this at this point than making something that is prettier or even easier. It's about answering the important questions and doing it accurately in a way that people can easily come to the right conclusion and then do something about it. I mean, that's where the action is, right? If you can give them true insight, then they will make the right adjustments to what it is that they are planning for and teaching. Then we've got a running shot at serving more students more equitably across classrooms. And by equity, I mean kids across the ability spectrum. We can serve them better.
Okay, so I'm hearing you. That's one way in which you've tackled the problem, like making sure that we are answering the most essential question with and doing so accurately and not in a way that is misleading. What else have you worked on?
Yeah, embraced a less is more mentality. And that speaks also to why we deliver things in print as opposed to dashboards, which we should probably talk about since the perception is that a delivered product in PDF form is less than. And I would argue that it is more than for a few reasons. If you deliver a PDF as opposed to a dashboard, you are forced to put as much on one page as possible to deliver information and anticipate the next question that somebody on a reasonable path of inquiry would have and answer that question too. And go as far as you can on that one sheet of paper. It forces you to be disciplined and clever and clear about what it is that you're doing. So there's one benefit.
And when you say put as much on one page, I'm wrestling with that against the less is more idea. So
That's
what do
fair
you mean?
distinction. So when I say less is more, I mean that the data sets that we choose to report are very, very limited. We do not take on custom reporting requirements or requests from clients. If they, for example, want a system to support their MTSS structures or to support their ESE compliance initiatives or to track even how successful a particular program supporting their ELL students is, we don't do those things. That's not our lane. Our lane is to help people understand whether or not the tier 1 instruction in their classrooms is effective and for whom. And the idea is that they would use the answer to that question to inform their strategic decision making, meaning how it is that they plan and for whom, using what materials. That's what we're trying to influence. So when I say less is more, I mean, we do not use expansive data sets. I mean, I can list them. We need rosters. We need state assessment data. We need progress monitoring data. And then if districts choose to include this on the student level reporting, course grades and attendance. And that's it. That's the whole shooting match. And believe me, that's enough.
Yeah.
Like getting people to really become expert at interpreting those data sets to inform the decisions I was just describing, it's plenty.
Yeah.
And by plenty, I mean it's a lift, and also it is enough. Like they will have more insight than they've ever had about what's working and what isn't. So that's what I mean by less is more.
Right.
Putting as much on a page, to be clear, I don't mean make the page crowded or use small type that nobody
you like
can
white
read.
space.
I like white space a lot. I mean, it's important to me. If you're going to get somebody to look at something, it should probably be visually compelling. So there's an art to designing things in such a way that they are both intuitive and have some depth.
They're dense.
They're dense. Dense is a good way to say it. They're dense in terms of insight.
Right. There's layers
But
to
visually,
them. Yeah.
they are not complicated. Generally, that's
Right.
the difficult part of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let me keep going here because trying to deliver that kind of visual requires that you use a particular instrument. Like there are only two big dogs in terms of developing visualizations that are out there. One is Power BI, one is Tableau.
Right.
Power BI is not built to create these layered, insight-dense visualizations. Tableau is built for that.
Right.
And it's horrific at it. But Tableau is not something that most places can afford to buy 10,000 licenses
Right.
for or want to stand up the infrastructure to support it. So what's the workaround there? The workaround is to generate the PDFs for them
Yeah.
out of Tableau. They're beautiful, projection ready, printable, like immediately. I don't know if you've tried to print a website lately.
Yeah.
It doesn't go well.
It's impossible.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not pretty. It doesn't make it feel like this was done especially for you.
Right.
Well, so that you can do the important work that you have to do, which is understand what's happening in your classroom or in your grade level. So anyway, that's why we use Tableau. Another benefit of sticking with delivered PDFs is that it allows us to embed the path of inquiry in a way that is impossible if you were delivering a dashboard. And I don't mean to bash Power BI. You could write something that's custom
Yeah.
that would be beautiful and, generate all of these visuals, but you still do that, then have control over what people see when.
Because of the filters. Is that what you mean?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're creating a dashboard, you've got 20 clicks.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's comprehensive, the data set is complicated, and by the time we're done, ours are.
Yeah.
It's 20 clicks to get to an image. And you would want a teacher to do that 3, 4, 5 times in order to assemble the thing that they need. And what are they going to do? They're going to print it, right? They can't keep it on
Right.
screen.
Yeah.
So they're going to try to print it. And why send everybody through that craziness? Just give them the portfolio, which
Right.
is, what our delivered products are called, where a principal has a PDF that is multi-page and audience specific.
Yep.
Meaning they've got one that's pointed at the grade level team, and they've got one for every single teacher that's teaching ELA or math that has that teacher's data and only that teacher's data. So it's what they need and no more. That kind of granular control over what people have, and importantly, I want to add one more thing in there, when they have it, hugely important. Hugely important, because what we have learned about what we put together is that when you are this clear about whether or not the instruction is effective, it elicits an emotional response from the people who are looking at it. And you have to anticipate that and control is not the right word. Navigate, be responsive to.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to be careful about who sees this information and when and under what circumstances. And doing that with a dashboard is pretty tricky. Like, can you imagine how many you would set 50 different permissions for people in a school?
Yeah.
So we deliver a portfolio. A principal can print what they want and deliver
Or
it to whom they want, when they
share
wish.
it securely within their own OneDrive or Google Drive.
They have total control over that.
That just made me think about also in those conversations that the main visual, the anchor visuals that we talk about, we have just a couple of them that are critical to the conversations with teachers who are wanting to reflect on their own instruction. And I was imagining in a dashboard, you could get to that view and then you would keep going.
It's the rabbit hole syndrome.
You would be like, I don't like this. Well, I don't like what I'm seeing here. Let me keep digging and maybe I'll find a better answer or something. Like, this is the human instinct to say, what else could I find here that's going to make me feel better about what I'm seeing? And so the thing with the print, it's like, there's nothing behind. You can't, you're like turning it over. Like, what else you got? No, this is it. We're going to confront this.
And in some circumstances, the not being able to dig deeper can be perceived to be a weakness.
Yeah.
But in most circumstances, certainly with our intended audiences, it is the strength that you're stating, right? That you have this.
Yeah.
Don't lose the forest for the trees.
Right.
See the pattern. This is the important truth about what is happening or has happened over the last few months instructionally in your classroom or in your grade level in your school. And that is the point. That's the thing to reflect on and make decisions against. I agree with you totally. You give them the ability to drill down, and they will. With the best of intentions. I don't mean to impugn those, but it becomes a distraction from the point, which can be very hard to look at.
Right.
It can be.
Absolutely. It also just removes some human error. Like, I'm thinking of another example where we were in a small district that we supported, and they were seeing something different in their assessment company's dashboard than we were talking about. And they were so confused. And when we finally got a look at what they were looking at, we realized they had the wrong filter selected. Why they were allowed to select filters that might be wrong, I don't know, but they had the option, and they had to know they had to choose a certain setting to get the correct information to display. They didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so they were actually making decisions based on just a completely wrong set of information.
I remember that example, and I remember that company, and that company has, if you study their outputs, they seem to subscribe to the idea that more is better.
Yeah.
Like lots and lots of different
They want to answer all the curiosity questions.
For sure. And probably, see, this is the thing that I think is so very different about us and anybody else. And when I say anybody else, I mean third parties, assessment companies, other dashboard reporting, specific academic reporting companies, or even internal assessment groups in large districts. The thing that is different about us is that we are responsive to our customers. This is going to sound terrible, only to a point.
Yeah.
We do not design our stuff by committee. I want to be clear. Some of the very best features in our visuals came from our clients.
For sure.
Who said, hey, why don't you do this? And we're like, yeah, why don't we do that? Let's fix that. However, there are many, many requests that people place for, hey, can we see it this way? Hey, can we see it that way? Hey, can you include this? And we only follow those or incorporate those changes if we are convinced that what people can do with the answer is worth the squeeze.
And that's the thing you always ask people. I've heard you say this when they say, it would be nice if I could see it this way. And you always say, what question are you trying to answer there? Like, what would you do with the answer?
And it
like
sounds
it sounds paternal, but it's
it is.
But
it does sound like that.
But it's born out of experience. So what are you going to do with the answer is really the important part. Like, is this just to satisfy a curiosity?
Yes.
Or is there something actionable that you really think you could do that would improve instruction by knowing the answer to this question?
And there's where clarity of purpose becomes so very important. Mm-hmm. You said it's born out of experience. Yes, that's true. And also, it's born out of this idea that I believe focus is something that is very, very hard to maintain in a school.
100%.
They are complicated organizations that live inside complicated bureaucracies that are run by even more complicated bureaucracies. Like, it's hard to get focus, especially when you have all these competing interests, even just around data and reporting and like, I have to be convinced that the thing that we're bringing in, that we're adding to, is advancing the cause of helping people to draw the right conclusions about their instruction and make the warranted adjustments. If it doesn't do that, I'm very, very cautious about adding anything.
We've actually stripped things out. Like, early on, we used to display domain level data coming out of progress.
So what do you mean by domain level data? People might not know what that term means.
Yeah, so the specific strands of content that are covered in the grade level standards. They are organized into domains.
So in math, it might be number sense or algebraic reasoning, geometry. Yep.
And, we have the ability to report on it, right? So why not?
Yeah.
You can. It seems like that would be useful.
They were beautiful.
It looked super cool. It was very colorful. Yeah, they were so pretty. But then after doing some conversations with teachers around these, we realized the data itself was a distraction. It was on the left side of the page, which is the funny thing. Like, people read left to right. Mm-hmm. We encouraged people to go right to that. And what would happen is
lose the forest.
Teachers would spend all their time, this one square is red because X. And we'd spend all the time there instead of backing out and saying, look at the pattern. The overall pattern is that students are losing ground across the ability spectrum in the classroom. It's not one domain that's causing that. And after some conversation, we just took it out. We're like, that's
and life
not
was better
helpful.
After that.
Absolutely. We had more powerful conversations, more focused. And then that domain data can come back in later. It's like it was the cart before the horse kind of thing.
I think that's a really good way to say it. It was the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And it literally was on the left side of the page. It was wrong for a couple of reasons. Proof that we are learners also. Like, we don't get it right the first time all the time, but we are willing to learn and make it better.
Right. And we do that by being in it with our customers.
I don't think there's another way to do
Yeah.
it. That's a difference with us, is that we are sitting with coaches, principals, teachers in some cases, doing this. And that is gives us a very different perspective than people who are a technology company. I think I do still bristle at the idea that we're a tech company.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to be very good at tech to do what it is that we do. But we're about the reporting and the insights that come from it to inform instruction. That's what we're for. I wanted to extend a bit on that example that you offered about the domain data. Not only was it a distraction, but we realized it doesn't mean what we thought it meant. And the example that's coming to mind is we realized that this particular third-party assessment company was not computing the domain scores for students. They were imputed, which I didn't know
Describe the difference,
for,
yeah.
or different. I didn't understand the difference until I got to digging into the technical guidance, and then went through the data sets and confirmed that what I thought was happening was happening. Think of it like this. If you are computing the score for a kid, it means that you have asked enough questions in that strand to come up with a score that is representative of the responses that that student offered to those questions.
Right.
I think a lot of people walk around thinking, isn't that how they all work? And the answer is absolutely not.
Definitely not in 30 minutes.
That's not how they all work.
Yeah.
And circumstances where that score or those domain scores are imputed, it means that they're looking across all of the scores for students and their responses to all of the questions that contributed to those scale scores and found patterns and said, hey, for a kid that has a scale score of 800, this is the typical domain response. What this means is that every kid who gets a score of 800 has exactly the same domain data, which was driving our teachers crazy.
Yeah.
Because there's like, that can't be right. I just taught geometry and it went pretty well. Those boxes cannot be read, but they are. And we thought that they were mistaken.
We thought they were wrong.
And that's where we got to digging in. And that's when we realized, oh my God, this does not mean what people think it means. And so we took it out. Who is our largest barrier, typically, to getting into a new client, would you say?
The assessment and accountability teams in a district.
Because why?
Well, I mean, I think in a lot of cases they see us as competition, meaning the things we're doing are presumably what they should be doing. Like they might perceive us as making them look like they're not, like they're falling down on the job. Like you're not getting it all the way there, so we need this other company to come in and
that's a reasonable reaction, I would think. I mean, if I were in their shoes, I would feel that way.
Yeah.
I really would.
Another thing is that they know too much. I feel, meaning like people who are data people, statistician type people are very particular about language, about what you can say. Like they'll be the ones who say, what's the standard error there? Or, in a meeting. And that is not a bad thing.
How stable are these percentile rankings over time? That was one that we heard.
Yeah. And
Missing the whole point.
You can pick people out. You're like, you probably work with data for your job, because you wouldn't know to ask that otherwise. And it's not that we think those things are unimportant. They just, on the ground, in conversations around instruction, they're not helpful. to know.
They confuse the issue.
They confuse people. They scare people off, like it's just not how we talk. And so I feel like that's one of the things we've learned over time is like, how do we talk about this in a way that is accessible for people?
Yep.
And, not talking down or dumbing it down, nothing like that. What we're saying is true, but it's not necessarily the precise way that a statistician would say it. It's instead the way that people would say it.
And that's part
like
of
humans
the art
would talk.
of it. That's part of the art of the training is to figure out what language is accessible while still being technically accurate and defensible. I mean, you and I both have science backgrounds. I mean, I wouldn't say that I've ever worked as a scientist, but an engineer and a physicist is close, right? I mean, I am not one to take liberties around method or language if I know better.
Right.
That said, how much do people really need to know? And I mean, oh my God, do you remember the sausage making we used to go into?
Yes.
Like those poor people in the county we live in.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they were such good sports about it all, but we hit them for 2 hours
50
with
slides of
literally how it all works, how this is connected to that, how this utterly not useful.
Yeah.
You do not need to know how a TV works to
watch
effectively watch television.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect analogy, but there's some truth in that about how these visuals get put together. You need to know what they mean. I mean, really need to understand how that data is pulled, where it's coming from, understand some core ideas, but you don't need to know the sausage making.
Yeah.
And I think we've gotten better at that over time and understanding what does this audience want really, and what do they need, and how do we serve that, being technically accurate always, and then leaving open the door. If there's anybody in the room that wants to go and
Right.
into the weeds of this and really unpack it all,
Right.
happy to do that. It's just now is not the right venue, right?
Yeah.
And since we have been more deliberate about delineating that content, I can't think of an example I can't think of an example where somebody said, sign me up for the full treatment. Like,
That's
give me a
true. Yeah, they always
just
say, we
doesn't-
trust you, move on.
That's the thing,
Yeah.
right? I think the hard part is building people's trust.
Right.
And I think that comes with learned experience. Like we, at this point, have lots of anecdotes and stories that help people to understand we're not new at what it is that we're doing. And also a respect for the technical competence of it.
Yeah.
That's important to us. We're not right all the time. Like we do make mistakes, but we try really hard to be technically defensible in all of our approaches.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I asked you the question about what are the biggest barriers to us coming into a district, because our lane is admittedly narrow, right? We're a academic data reporting company. And I think reasonable people come to the conclusion we already do that.
Yeah.
And they do, right? They have assessment groups that do that.
Right.
They have third-party assessment providers that have their own dashboards and reporting. They even have dashboard companies. Like in the larger districts, they've got another party whose job it is to intake and have a data warehouse and have all these visuals. They've got all of that, and they think surely we have to have the bases covered at this point. And what they don't sometimes appreciate until we are given an opportunity to help them see it is that for all of those things, there's still not clarity around what we would offer is the most important question that we have to be answering for people using the progress monitoring data in the moment. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
More does not mean that you have the base covered. And I would offer in most cases, it means that there's a confusion around the issue and how to answer the question or even what we're shooting at in terms of improving performance. So what I was getting at was, I think most people believe they're already doing what we do. And they are in name. They are reporting their academic data. They are probably doing it in multiple different ways. It's probably technically accurate. All of those things can be true and it not be useful.
Right.
And that's what we are here for.
Yeah.
If we have people that believe that a focus on Tier 1 instruction is the only path to improving outcomes, and I happen to believe that's true. I think the rest of it is supportive and ancillary. I'm setting aside the keeping students safe, and obviously there are a million things a principal has to do to run a school. I'm talking about academically speaking.
Right.
The path is improving Tier 1 instruction. That's it. That begins and ends there.
Yeah.
We support that. And that's why our tools are shaped, designed, delivered the way that they are. And that's why they are better. And that's why they are unique in the space. We have a belief. This is the thing that we should be aimed at. And we want to help people aim at that thing.
Thanks so much for listening today. If you are interested in learning more about K12 Lift and what we do, visit our website at k12lift.com.